Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory release. This time we've got another Danger Pack figure, as we have the Hypsilophodon. And this one is definitely a really cool figure, not just, visually, because it is fantastic visually, but a really cool figure to see in the Mattel line. It's a very cool species that I personally would not have expected to have seen in the Mattel line, but definitely happy to see it, and it's a species that we really don't see very often. Like, for some reason, this species is almost always overlooked. The packaging, of course, is going to look as it usually does. You're not really going to find anything different on this one compared to the Gamiza, which we recently reviewed. So let's go ahead, pop it straight out of the package, and check it out. And here is our figure, and look at how cool this one is. I love the way that these feathers are sculpted out on the figure. It definitely looks really neat. Clearly, Mattel took some very interesting artistic liberties with this guy. He looks quite striking and quite memorable, that's for sure. They definitely did a good job on coming up with a design that looks very different from other dinosaurs they've released. One of the most interesting things, and I am very unaware where they got the idea for this, are these very strange crests that come off of the back of the head. Now, if there's something that I haven't heard of when it comes to Hypsilophodon that they've discovered that would lead Mattel to create it with this sort of a look, I would love to hear about it in the comments section if you guys have any information on that, because I have never seen Hypsilophodon portrayed with that sort of a look, and it is very striking, almost dragon-like, but very intriguing that they would go this route when creating this figure. It is such a strange look for it, but I mean, you can't dare deny that that is definitely a memorable look for sure. As far as the sculpt, though, goes, the fine detail looks really nice. We can see a mixture of kind of like some scales and feathers here in the face. We can see the nostrils sculpted out. We do have a yellow coloration for the majority of the head, as well as a yellow for the eye, and almost a slit-like sort of pupil. And the eye looks pretty good. Overall, it does have a nice satin shine, so it has a nice kind of shiny, wet look to it. You can see the beak is sculpted out here. Unfortunately, only the top part of the beak has been given some color, as we have a dark brown, and then as we lead to the underside here, to the lower jaw, we have a reddish brown, and that's what we get for the other half of the beak. But moving along the lower jaw, you've got some nice skin texture and everything as you lead back here. As you move up into the back of the head, you can see some more feathers popping up again here. The entire area basically of these crests looks to be sculpted out with feathers, and then you have some feathers over the top of the head and moving down along the back of the neck. The detail is really quite crisp and vibrant as well. I think this one would be a fun one to repaint also. As you move down, you can see the yellow start to sort of break up down into the reddish browns, and we have more skin texture down here, which looks pretty good. As we lead back here into the shoulder area, you start to see more of that reddish brown kind of creeping through the yellows, as well as the yellow really starts to break up, basically moving along the back, and then it's gone from there. As you move down into the arms, you can see some nice muscle definition, as well as some more feathers leading off of the back of the elbow right there. Leading along, you've got some very vibrant skin texture as we head down into the hands. The hands have some scoots down the fingers, and then unfortunately no nail paint for the figure, but it does have some very vibrant detail within the hands and fingers of our Hypsilophodon. Articulation-wise, up until this point, we only have up and down movement for the neck, and then arm articulation, so we don't have any kind of like jaw articulation or anything on this figure. But as we move back, you can see the yellow has obviously overtaken the arms entirely. Then the yellow is gone, and now we are back to that reddish brown almost entirely. We can see, again, some very impressive skin texture down here in the stomach, as well as some slices and injuries within the stomach. And as you move up to the back, you start to see more of those feathers, almost kind of like emu-like feathers up here on the back of the dinosaur. It is unfortunate, though, that the feathers are the same color as the body. If there's one thing I could have asked of Mattel for this figure, it would be to give the feathers a little bit of a different color compared to the rest of the skin texture. But that being said, the coloration that they've given this does actually look pretty cool and pretty striking, but I just feel like more consistency with the paint of the feathers would have looked nicer on the figure. But as we continue to move along, you still see again some pretty nice looking feather detail. There's also a speckling that you can see, kind of like a dark gray or a black speckling showing up here and there. We have more feathers leading down into the thigh. As you can see, we return to the skin texture, though, pretty early on into the thigh. It looks really good, really crisp, really highly detailed. We've got more muscle definition down here in the calf, but you can see the feathers basically follow along the back of the leg, which is quite interesting. And you can see quite a little bit of like a bunch of feathers down here on the back of the leg before disappearing entirely into skin texture. But overall, the leg looks really, really nice. Again, some more paintwork moving down with those feathers could have looked really cool. Then we lead down into the foot sculpt, and you've got pretty much like your classic Mattel foot sculpt with some nice scoots down the toes, some nicely sculpted nails, very vibrant scale detail here along the side. And although we don't have nail paint, you can see a gloss coat has been added to the nails, which definitely does look quite nice. There is also a dew claw, which we can see on the opposing side over there. And of course, you have the standard articulation for the legs, though you're going to have a hard time getting this leg to go any further than that because of these feathers right here. You'd have to swivel the tail to get that leg past there, but as you can see, you do have a swivel in the tail as well. But pretty much all your standard when it comes to Danger Pack articulation on this figure. Leading back, you can see another injury right here behind the thigh, as well as, again, some more impressive feather detail leading along. And then, once we lead out into the tail, you can really see the feathers pick up as we have this really interesting display of feathers as we lead out into the tail, where they basically just kind of like widen up here and have quite the interesting look. But when you get nice and close, look, the feather detail looks pretty good. Maybe slightly muted, but for the most part, it's pretty crisp and looks quite nice, and also features kind of like an orangish brown leading out into those feathers. They do again taper back off as we lead out into the tail, and we actually return to a skin textured look for the tip of the tail as we lead out. We do have a little bit of a curve to the tail as well. Of course, you're going to see pretty much the same thing on both sides outside of the positioning of the legs, where the leg is trailing over here compared to leading on the other side. And then of course we also have different injuries throughout the course of the figure. There we go, camera. As you can see, some more slices in the stomach, some more leading into the thigh right there, and I'm sure there's a few more I'm probably overlooking as we lead along, as these figures are usually fairly overloaded with injuries and stuff, but this one doesn't look too bad as far as that goes. A little more realistic of a take, I would say, as far as the injuries and everything on this one. But as far as the fax app code goes, there you go. If you would like to add this one to your collection, you now can. But it's definitely a really cool figure, and even though it is obviously exaggerated and Mattel took some serious artistic liberties with it, it's definitely going to be a figure that will be memorable, that's for sure, and I think that's probably what they were going for. As far as a size goes, let's actually turn it around. For a length from the snout to the tail, just a hair over 7¼ inches, or around 18½ centimeters. And then for a height, you're looking at about 3¼ inches, or a little bit under 8½ centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Hypsilophodon, and you can see it's pretty much, again, in the standard size range for the Danger Pack, so no real differences in size here. Maybe a little bit more tail length slightly, but or maybe it just kind of looks that way. But either way, again, it's definitely not any sort of like groundbreaking, amazing difference in size. And to continue to show you that, here is the Gamiza that we recently reviewed next to the Hypsilophodon, and you can see again that they are pretty similar in size overall, with just a little bit more body mass to the Gamiza. And then, of course, a Mattel Velociraptor stepping in just to really confirm the size of this, again, sitting right there in the standard Danger Pack Strike Attack size range. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory Danger Pack Hypsilophodon is an awesome looking figure. It really is, even though it's quite exaggerated and maybe a little different from what the dinosaur would actually look like in real life. It kind of suits the Jurassic World line, because the Jurassic World line and even the films and everything usually try to come up with some sort of a different kind of memorable view of their dinosaurs, and you can't dare deny that's what they've done with the Hypsilophodon. And just generally, I am excited to see this species entering any line, because you really don't see it very often, so it's definitely exciting to have it in the Mattel line. And overall, they did do a great job on the fine detail. I love the fact that this one has feathers, because we don't always get feathered dinosaurs from Mattel, though it does seem to be a more reappearing trend lately. They definitely have been giving us more and more feathered dinosaurs as time goes on. But I think the feather detail on this looks great, as does the skin texture and scale detail. I think that as well is really well done, very crisp. The actual fine detail of Mattel figures over the last few years has become so good, it is ridiculous. Like, you can really see that they have upped their game when it comes to the fine detail of their sculpts. And, of course, this one also features a pretty nice paint application. Like I said a few times, I really would have liked to have seen the feathers painted the entire way through the body, but that's not really something that's usually in the cards when it comes to Mattel figures. But even still, you know, the coloration looks cool on this. I like the way that it kind of changes through the figure as you start out with a bright yellowish tone, then you go to the darker reddish brown tone, and then you have a little bit of flashiness with some orangish tones as we lead out into the tail. So it does have a pretty cool look and almost a fully painted look, because you have paint all the way from head all the way out into the tail, but the feathers being painted would have definitely made a massive difference for this one, and the nails being painted, of course, would have helped, but at least we have a gloss coat on the nails. It does also feature some articulation, usually, you know, your standard articulation from Mattel. So if you are interested, as I said in my Gomeza review, unfortunately, the listing on Big Bad Toy Store was sold out last time I looked at it, and that's where I purchased these. But I will, of course, include it in the description regardless, because they do tend to restock them. And if you can't find it on there, of course, just wait for it to show up in store at some point in the very near future. And like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.